Hi, it's Glenn of Beaver Labs. Today I'm going to talk about Sketchup. Sketchup is a CAD program or CAD-like program that's pretty easy to get on and start making three-dimensional objects. Sometimes called Google SketchUp, sometimes called Trimble SketchUp, different companies that have owned the product. There is a free version, which is what I'm using. The version I have is probably kind of old right now. It's version 8. They've got several versions later than that. But the principles are the same, the basics are the same, so we'll go through that, how to get started. So I brought the program up, and the default image that comes up was, I show the three-dimensional axes and a figurine of a person here to give you some idea of the scale that you're working in. I'm using the center wheel of the mouse to zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to cover four things to do here today, four classes of things anyway. First, I'm going to talk about some of the windows. If we go up here to the window tool, see I've got entity info and layers checked. That's this over here, layers and entity info. I'm also going to check model info to bring up this. This is something you'll bring up when you first get started, perhaps, but then almost never access again, at least during the life of a particular model. This is where you select your units. There's a lot of other things to select here, but the units is the one I'm going to look at. It's meters by default. I usually prefer to work in either inches or millimeters. I'll select inches here. The resolution or precision shows 3 decimal places. That goes out to 1,000ths of an inch in the measurements that they do in boxes down there. Enables snapping to 3 decimal places. I can add another 0 in there if I want to get more fine resolution that way. And there's no save. You just change those and you can kill this box, so you don't need that to garbage up your display. But I would keep the layers active and the this model info down there. For example, first thing I'm going to do here is delete this figurine by left clicking. It selects it, and I can just hit the delete key. Let's go up to draw. You can see you can draw a line, an arc, freehand, which I almost never use, rectangle, circle, and polygon. And these over here are shortcuts. This isn't Control C or Control R. It's just hit the C, hit the R, and so forth. And that's what I use all the time. So if I say hit the L on the keyboard, that line comes up. And go down to the origin here and see that forms, it kind of snaps to it. And I can hold down the left mouse button and draw a line, either along the axes. It tends to have an affinity for axes, or anywhere. If you draw it out here, it's kind of hard to tell where you're drawing it from this perspective. But I'm going to release the left mouse button, and there's a line. Now I'm going to use a command called an orbit command, the camera orbit command, an O. Is that little thing. So if I hold down the mouse button, I can move the view around to look at it at different angles. And I can see that that thing is on the red and the green axis. There's no blue showing on there. I can hit the space bar to clear that. And left click the line to select it. And if I look over here and into the info, it says it was drawn on layer 0. It's 49.624 inches long. Now you can change that by this box here. I can change it to say 1 foot long. And there it is. I'll go over here and click in that area and hit my center mouse button to zoom in here again. So that's an easy way to make a precise change. When you're first drawing a line, say I'll hit the L again, click there and draw a line, say on the green axis, and stop it. You can see down here in this corner what the length is. Of course, now it's moving because it looks like I'm trying to draw another line segment. But if at that point I just type in some number, say 45, now it's made a 45-foot long line from that segment. Or I could type in 2 or 1. I can just keep zeroing in on the length of what I want. And it's a way of drawing a line in the direction you want and then dealing with the length slightly later. So here's a more fun one. If I want to draw a circle or just hit the C, I'll do that at the origin. I'll hit left click and then move out like this. And you can see again, both in the radius, it says 0.211 radius. And I'll hit the, if I want to change that, I can say 0.2, 0.5, or I can even change units. I can say, let's see, 0.4 centimeters, 4 feet, that's pretty big. Here's where Control Z is your friend. And start over. See. Anyway, the point here is that you can change units. You don't have to have your model info and change it in order to be able to work in other systems. You can set it to a default, but if you want to do another measurement, typically you would just put that in the box. 5 feet, 5 or 4 millimeters. So you can draw a line, you can draw a circle, you can draw a polygon. There's no shortcut for that, at least in my system. See, it comes up with a little polygon symbol. Left click and then move it out, rotate it where you want it to be. Again, you can change the radius by just typing 0.4. If you want to say, you can change the number of sides there as well. Now I'm going to hit the P command, which is push, and it's an extruder. So if I left click on the surface I want to extrude and then draw it up, like magic, or down. You have to be careful sometimes. See here it's drawing the one side down, but the other's open. If I draw it up here, I'll left click, and I'll say 1, and I'll say 0.5. Now I'm going to hit the O for orbit, and hold down the left mouse button, and I can rotate the view. You can see it's open at the bottom. Oh, a simple way of closing a surface is to say hit L and then draw a line from any of the 2 points. It magically closes it, and I can go back in and left click and delete the line. All kinds of tricks like that. I won't say many of them now, but there's one that I particularly like, and I discovered this fairly recently. If I hit the L command and go to the radius of a circle, and then drag, it'll find the center of the circle. Now this is probably, let me draw a circle over here, just not on an axis. So, where's the center of that? You can draw lines, the intersection, and that kind of stuff, but I just hit the L, hover over the outside edge for a second or so, and then move it in this way, it pops to the center. And then I can say, before I hit any other mouse button, say maybe hit, let's say R for rectangle, and then click. It's going to draw a rectangle starting from that center point. And here's a good time to point out that this is a sticky system. So I have 3 surfaces really. If I click this, you can see this shading is this part, the intersection is another section, this is another section. So I click on this and hit P and extrude it. Control Z to wipe that out. And this is where layering is useful. Let me hold down the left mouse button and drag it around this object, it selects everything that was in there. Now I can right click and it says I can make a group or I can make a component. So if I make a group out of this, it's now an entity, and if I move that by hitting an M and dragging it, see it takes that piece with it, but nothing else. Control Z to go back to there. Now if I draw, say, a line on top of this, and hit move for the other object, the line is not part of that. But maybe I wanted to be a part of it. So I can left click the line, and I can say edit, cut, and then left click that and double click to get inside of that model. And now I can say edit, paste in place, and now that line is going to be part of that object. If I left click to get out of this and I move that, now the line goes with it. It's part of the object. So let me talk about layers a minute. Always, always, always draw things on layer 0. When I first started with this, people kept exhorting me to do the same thing, and I didn't understand it, but just take our word for it. You can stay in a lot less trouble if you draw everything on layer 0. Now, once you've drawn, everything here is drawn on layer 0. It's the only layer is to define. But if I have this object here, this component, or group, actually, let me add a plus here and say, I'm going to call this layer, define a layer named circle. So when I select this, it's on layer 0. Click this down arrow, I can select circle. So now, click over here, it's layer 0, click over here, it's circle. Now up here, if I uncheck the visibility for circle, everything that's drawn in layer circle disappears, including anything inside of it. All the layer 0s inside of it go away as well. This is really, really handy when you're making a part that has different components to it that you want to render visible or not. So that's probably enough for the time being. There's obviously many other things, but let's go up to File, Save As. It's going to file as the type SKP file. So I'll put this in here. I'll call this test.skp. And now if I close this, either by doing a file exit or hitting the red box up there, it doesn't make any difference. It gives you often gives you an option of sharing your model with the world. So if I were to open this up again, and I'm going to say File, Open, and there it is, right at the top. Double click that. Now there's our beloved model again. Open up and ready for more fun games. Okay, that's it for now. Hope this is at least marginally helpful, getting into Sketchup and starting to do things. I will make one other note that there are no coordinates per se in Sketchup, and there's no inside solids. Everything here is just a surface. I would delete that surface, look inside there, it's just hollow. There are two sides to things. You can see sometimes you have different colors on here. You can enable shading or not, which sometimes is helpful. The sidedness becomes useful when you get to do things like creating STL files for 3D printers. And then that becomes more important. Anyway, that's it for now. See you later. Bye.